Well, let's start. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Carla Serron. I'm the project assistant of the WiSE program. And before introducing this session, I would like to do the acknowledgement of country. Western Sydney University would like to acknowledge the Darug people who are the traditional custodians of the land that we are on today. We acknowledge and we pay respects to elders, past and present, who have given us time, knowledge, and guidance. We appreciate the rich contribution and resilience that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people provide to Western Sydney University. Now, my colleague Perrine will introduce our today's speaker.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to today's workshop. We're so excited to have Maria here with us today from Professionals Australia. Maria will be covering a range of topics today, but she will also be discussing the gender pay gap, which we know is quite significant, especially in STEM. She'll be giving us some advice on general workplace practices as well, and she'll also cover the benefits of joining professional associations and things like that. So I'll hand over to Maria now so she can start the workshop.
Excellent. Thank you for the introduction, guys, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Also for everyone, so I just clear my voice. Also for everyone, thank you for attending. All right, now hopefully by the end of this session, this would be as useful as it is, I would say, for you that I reckon. I mean, I was in STEM. I'm in STEM, and I did university. I did a science course, and if I had known all this information ahead of time, it would have been very useful. It would have made me a lot more prepared. As Benjamin Franklin said, failure to prepare is a preparation for failure. So that's just to introduce myself and why I'm here specifically. So I'm going to first off break it into parts. All right, I'm going to make this very clear. Now, what's going to happen is at the start, I'm going to talk about more the broad STEM, how to job search strategies, and I'll go deep dive into it. What's going to happen is you're going to feel as if it's going to be spam. It's going to be a lot of information. Now, don't be shy. Take notes down. If you don't want to take notes down, just go in the chat and type in your question. What I'll do is I'll answer it at the end of the session. Now, that's more the broad sense. Then I would say the second part, which applies to all of us because we're women here. Now, I'm going to discuss the gender pay gap and reasons why this occurs. And also, I'll show you what we surveyed, the report that came out just recently. All right, because what happens at Professionals Australia, as an all, we pretty much survey everyone from every profession in STEM, every level, nationwide, every year. Now, for the women aspect, the gender part, we do this every 2 to 3 years. Okay, so we just had a report that was released, and I'll walk more about it and as to the reasons why. So it pretty much gives you the landscape of what you're working with, and I think it's really important for me to sort of set the scene for you guys. So when you step into the workforce, you really have this sense of empowerment where you know what you're worth. Okay, because the first year out, you'll all be paid the same, but it's only when you start progressing, the guys always end up getting paid a whole lot more than women because I suppose sounds very rude, but there's this entitlement to them, and they always, when they go for that performance review, they demand stuff. Whereas us, we women, we're conditioned to sort of like be nice, and don't ruffle any feathers and stuff like that. But there's a way of ruffling feathers with being respectful. So we'll talk more about that. Okay, so that's just a few housekeepings, and that's just the agenda, just to let you know. I'm just going to take a look at here. We've got how many attendees? So 16 minus 3, that's 13. Now, small group, which I love. What I'm going to do before I start is can I get an idea of what you're currently studying, which area? So then I know how to say, perhaps use examples that I've seen in the past and what I've seen too. So in the chat, just tell me what you're studying at the moment. That will be, if that's all right. Perfect. Computer science. Excellent. Thank you so much, Benz. All right. Anyone else? Just because it's Masters of Architecture. Right. Bachelor of Engineering. Yep. Health Science. Okay. Civil Engineering. Yep. Civil Engineering. No, you don't need to have your camera on. I think it's better not to have your camera on anyways, just quality wise. Yeah. Engineering. Yep. Mechatronic and robotic engineering. Yep. PhD in environmental engineering. Urban ecosystems. Yep. All right, I think I get a fair idea. I'm doing a Master's of Project Management, specializing in construction. Yep, that's cool. I know I have a friend who does that. But he's a guy, so obviously he demands a lot more. So that's a harsh reality, but that's fine. Excellent. All right, so I'm getting a fair idea. What I'll do is I'll go back to each area once I start going through the surveys and so forth. All right, now, okay, so let's start. All right, I'm going to share my screen. A few seconds. Let me bring this up. Now, share the screen. Here you go. Bang. How about now? Yep. Now, minimize that. Open that up. It's taking a while. Okay, that's cool. So I just want to confirm, Perrin, can you hear me? Is this all good? Can you see it right? Just say yes or no or whatever.
Yeah, we can see you perfectly. Hear perfectly.
Perfect.
All good.
Excellent. All right. So again, thank you so much for your time and your attention. I hope this is very useful for you. I reckon it is. I think it will be. Now, as I mentioned, this is going to be the first part. So this is more so for men and women. All right. So as you can see here, it says the ultimate jobs guide. So I'm Maria Nguyen. I'm from Professionals Australia, specifically working in Young Professionals Australia, focusing on people such as yourself. All right, students in STEM. Okay. So this is the reason why I'm here, the reason why we talk about it, and also the reason why Professionals Australia, we operate in this space is that, you know, we've identified the fact that, you know, and I think this speaks very, it's not just us, a lot of people know this. Once you get out into the industry, Australia doesn't value research and development so much. Okay, they don't really value research and innovation. I think the current problem is, and I don't say I think, we probably pretty much know, they value too much the mining industry, and the issue is that they're selling their commodities for much lower than what they should be selling it for. They're not really, I think Australia lacks the foresight. They also focus on property, you know, and the thing is, you know, it's too short term. Whereas when you think about research and innovation, if we think about people in STEM, we want to keep this in Australia because, you know, we want to make sure there's a whole lot more jobs. And not just that, you know, reputation wise, like I'd like to see Australia future wise be a force to be reckoned with when it comes to research and development, technology and so forth. But at the current moment, it's not happening. Not much is invested in that. And because of that, you see a lot of working conditions in STEM and also pay and everything like that. It's going downhill. And I'll talk more about it too, okay, throughout the whole talk. And also when I talk about the gender pay gap as well. So that's the reason why we work at Professionals Australia. That's what we are. We're a professional association. We're member run, member owned. We have, at the current moment, we're sitting at, say, 28,000 members, all right? So that's quite a lot because a lot of people recently joined up since a lot of engineers were let go at Qantas for obvious reasons now, right? And you can generally tell when you're going to be let go when you're working in a company. You can smell it in the air. So they signed up with us before they were let go. So in a young professional sense, the reason why I'm here, we want to make sure that you have the competitive edge when it comes to finding a job in STEM, because I'll talk about statistics, the numbers are pretty much stacked up against yourself. All right, and we pretty much give you the tools and how to navigate this, and that's what a lot of this talk is about. So, as I mentioned a little bit about us, so at the current moment, we're at, say, 28,000 professionals. It says 25,000, but there was a big jump recently in light of the current situation. Not just that, I mean, we are the #1 industry training program for STEM students. We've had 60 plus years transforming STEM students into accomplished professionals now. Okay, and as I mentioned, we're a professional association as well as a trade union. We're non-for-profit. Okay, our motivation is what I said earlier now. Yeah, for us, we just want to make sure that research and innovation and also standards of your work conditions gets lifted. Right, raises, and hopefully down the track we can see the future where the market of STEM is not super saturated. All right, so before I get into, say, the whole deep dive into the whole topic of job search strategies, what I need to talk to you about is firstly, the master industry trends. Now, you can't put together a good application unless you know the statistics, what you're working against. And also secondly, you got to understand what employers, what kind of challenges that they face when they find their gold star candidates such as yourself, okay? We're also talking about, say, you know, winning the ideal jobs despite COVID. And this can be easily done for sure. We've pretty much placed a lot of people, not placed, but coached them to the point where they've got a job. And I just got a message from a guy from, it was at University of Melbourne in Sciences. He just messaged me through LinkedIn, say about 10 minutes ago, saying, "Hey, Maria, I got my internship. Thank you so much for your help." So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the fact that you need to go through a proper application process. So, you know, don't think about your paper-based CV, because that is so standard. To me, I always liken the paper-based CV as the say dumb phone, like the Nokia 3210 back retro times. It's all happening now on LinkedIn, on the hidden job market space, and I'll talk to you more about that later. And I'll also talk about situations where you can lock in your pay and career progression. I'll talk more about that in the women's part, the gender part, all right? Because it's really important. The approach for women should be different, because that I would say that embraces the qualities that we have as women, all right? We've got more holistic approach that a lot of guys don't have, yeah? And also I'll talk about joining the movement as well. And also, you know, in general, you know, professional development and stuff like that. There's so much to cover, but those are the key things I'll be talking about in the first part of the session. Now, before I get a deep dive into this, now, what I'm going to talk to you about is membership with us. So at Professionals Australia, let's talk about Young Professionals Australia. We pretty much have a one-on-one coaching service. So all the things that I talked about, and I forgot to even tell you the questions and answers interview, how you land the job. It's a one-on-one coaching service, right? So it's no webinars. We have webinars on top if you want to sign in. But everything we do is one-on-one, including the coaching on LinkedIn, how to set that up, how to network. Also, you know, you're talking about, say, the resume reviews, what we do, and, you know, contract reviews as well. I'll talk to you more about later. And also the indemnity insurance. So say, for instance, doing an internship and we help you do that. You join up with us, we help you do that. What happens is sometimes in a company you make mistakes, and the harsh reality is sometimes a big company will try to find you and get you as a scapegoat. So we have indemnity insurance to protect you from that too, should you want an internship, summer placement, and you're a member with us. So normally it's at $10 per month, but we're offering it at a special rate of $4 per month. That's, to me, that's good because it's tax deductible, because we're not for profit. Not just that, we offer 5% off Woolies and Coles. So if you think about it, when it all adds up, we're pretty much paying you to join us, all right? And our main aim is to make sure that you guys stick to what you love doing, like hopefully your course, all right? I know I liked at the start, and then at the end it sort of waned off, but hopefully stick to the industry that you're doing, because it's all for the better course, okay? So that's, I'll put up the link at the end of this segment, and we can talk more about that. Now, let's get into it. All right, so let's take a look at statistics now. So in STEM, you have, let's take a look, 20% of graduates, right? Say, for instance, you're in your final year, right? So 20% of graduates in STEM find a job upon graduation. So what that looks like is like there's 20%, the cohort, 20% of these people here in this chat, they've landed their first job on their own. So when they walk into the last exam, they're not sweating about, oh no, I'm going to go out there in the big bad world and land a job. They found that job already. They're just more walking to the exam, trying to ensure that, you know, they just pass everything. Well, hopefully you'll do better than pass, but pass everything and therefore complete the course, all right, 20%. Now, you have 50% of graduates, they find a job 6 to 12 months after they graduate. That's a long time. Now you have 30%, right? 30% of students, graduates that find a job, say about, it's like a year after they graduate. So that's 30%. Now, let's take a look at the cohort, those students that are working full time. 25% of them do not even work in the job that's intended, like that's correlated to their course. That's the harsh reality, right? Because if you think about it, like when you're 1 year out, you're pretty much desperate to work, right? People get depressed when they don't work or they don't have a sense of purpose. So, it's like, oh, well, I don't have a sense of purpose, plus I got to pay the bills. So then they take on a job that has nothing to do with what they're doing. And this is a harsh reality. Now, I'll give you an example. I did a biomed biotech course. It was a multi-major, and a lot of people I knew, I was lucky. I managed to get in the industry, and I'll tell you more about my history and background later. Now, a lot of my work colleagues, they didn't make it. And I found some ended up working in a bank. Some also ended up one guy I knew, he was so smart. He used to always get HDs, right? He was so studious. The thing was his soft skills were lacking, or he didn't know how to communicate his soft skills in interviews. And he could not get a job for years, 8 years. Then he decided to go back to study to become a paramedic. Now, this is very common, specifically in STEM sciences for sure. So that's just to give you a bit of, just to give you the reality of what you're working up against, all right? Now, statistics have it that in STEM, you've got, say, if you talk about advertised job market, the labor market, you've got 44,000 STEM job seekers per year to only, and this is nationwide, to only 15,000 jobs per year. Now that's dismal, all right? You're very smart, you're all in STEM, do the math. It's like tripling the number of applicants to each, STEM entry-level job that's advertised. Now, if you take a look at the situation, obviously you're going to say to yourself, well, this is woeful. What can I do with this piece of information? And also, what can Professionals Australia do help me? How can they help me? Now, you got to understand that you have to think of another job pathway, because if you take a look at the advertised job market, where, oh my God, the advertised job market, where they call it the the labor market, it's working up against you. So the other pathway to take a look at is the hidden job market. Okay, so now that I've put up the next screen, you'll sort of get what I'm talking about in terms of the hidden job market. So the hidden job market has always been big, and pre-COVID, it's twice the size of the advertised job market. The reason why it's so big, and it's just mainly because, number one, students, and myself included, like 14 years ago, I would just go to, say, the company website. I'd Google all the top biotech or, bioscience companies or pharmaceutical companies in Google. I'll Google them up. I'll put it down in a list. And then I'll just go to the websites and find if there are jobs in the job portal, or I go and seek and find advertised jobs, right? I never navigated in my first job ever in the hidden job market space. I only did that after my first job. Now, the hidden job market is so big because students just target the advertised jobs. And not just that, you understand, in COVID, in light of these times, the hidden job market is not just twice the size of the advertised job market, it's now 4 times the size. And we know this because we work with a lot of students and we get them to network and operate in the hidden job market. So now that I've gotten your attention in this regards, I think what's really critical is that you really pay attention for the next 30 minutes, because it's all going to be about setting yourself to operate in the hidden job market, where you can gain access to employers, they can gain access to yourself, and not just that, they'll even create a job for yourself. All right, so let's rewind back and go through, let's talk about why the hidden job market again is so big. So the hidden job market's always been big, and now I would say it's bigger than ever, most during COVID. And the reason why is that this is where a lot of companies and organizations want to do their recruitment. They want to do their recruitment 100% through these means. And for a student like yourself, your main concern is time when it comes to finding your first job, right, in STEM. Now, for an employer, for them, it's at risk of a bad decision, because if they hire the wrong person, they have to give that person, HR-wise, in a politically correct sense, they have to give them 3 chances before they can let them go, all right? And not just that, when they let them go, that's loss of productivity. They have to, that time when, someone could be working there and making the firm or company more lucrative, That's a loss of productivity. Not just that, they have to advertise for the job again. And you got to understand, advertising for jobs, it costs a lot. Say $700 per month on Seek. That was, say, about 10 years ago when I was in scientific sales and engineering sales recruitment. But not just that, it'll be more now. And if you think about it, there's a job that's out there, especially during COVID. And my friend who's an engineer, he applied. He was moving from academia and to corporate. And he told me he applied for one senior level. This is a senior level job, right? So senior level means that you won't get many applicants to it because it's highly, highly experienced. He applied for one job and he was interviewing against 298 other people in Victoria. Now, this is the harsh reality. This is what's going to happen. All right. So the reason why I talk about high numbers like that when people apply is that a lot of money is spent from HR sifting through these CVs. And what they tend to do is they don't want to bring you in for an interview. Instead, they'll give you a call and they'll say, do you know, we'll interview and screen them in the 15 minutes. And I'm sure you guys have come across this, whether it be jobs in STEM or maybe a casual job and stuff like that. So for companies, they don't make that bad decision, and they don't want to have to use half their HR team, like 10 HR resource people, associates, sifting through CVs. They want to just get straight to you. All right. So what they're doing now is they prefer to do their recruitment through social media, as you can see here, LinkedIn, because they feel as if LinkedIn gives more of a three-dimensional look of how you are as a person. And at the current moment, they're not leaving it up to chance. So they've put in place social recruitment schemes. And this is where I can give you an example of where I've been part of the social recruitment schemes plenty of times. And I also use the social recruitment scheme. So now I'll give you an example. So what the social recruitment scheme looks like now. So if you take a look, if you think about the hidden job market, the natural cycle for, say, a company to try to find someone is that they would always advertise a job internally for the first 6 months before they advertise externally. Now, I worked at, I've been in the research as well as the sales side of say, a STEM, and I was working at I'll just name one company because the other one I wasn't a big fan of, I'll tell you why. So I was working at Shire Pharmaceuticals. All right, so I had a pretty senior role, and what occurred here was that they often tended, they were pretty much growing as a company, and internal HR would send an email blast up to a lot of people and say, all right, we are currently looking for a medical science liaison, B, a quality control chemist, C, or just a whole list of people. Then they'll say something to in the email, dear employee, we're looking for X, Y, and Z. Now, if you can refer someone that might be interested in this role, we would award you $400, right? There's an incentive. Now, if they get the job, you would receive $2,000. So that's a social recruitment scheme, right? I've met plenty of times I've referred a lot of my ex-work colleagues from other companies that I worked at, and vice versa, they would refer me, because at the end of the day, whenever the person I referred got the job, I'd receive $2,000, and $2,000 is quite a bit. So that is what you call the social recruitment scheme. That is one of the reasons why the hidden job market exists, and it's big, all right? One of the key reasons. So that's the hidden job market. So, you know, pretty much when you join with Professionals Australia, what we'll help you do is we'll set you up, with a LinkedIn profile. So it's a full digital detailed resume. You will initially say, do you know what? I'm just a student. I'm not worthy of it. I can't create one. You know what? We'll prove you wrong. Pre-COVID, I would say we set up like 600 LinkedIn profiles. I think post-COVID, I think we've set up, say, about 900, right? So they've been very, very successful. You know, the main concern is not how you use it. I don't know how you build it. It's how you use it. Now, my work colleague Gabby, she'll sit down with you and she'll help you build this. And what she'll do is she'll also help you network, all right? So I'm going to discuss this and break this down in many different approaches. So when you set yourself up with a LinkedIn profile that's really detailed with us, like coaching one-on-one, what happens is your profile will have, and I can't deep dive in this profile, but your profile will have like key words, as well as, you know, it'll be really robust and it'll be professional in the sense where, say for instance, the HR associate gets orders from a HR director and says, hey, we're currently looking for a biomedical engineer entry level. Okay, now we really need you to do that. Go search. I don't want to advertise, too expensive. You know what they do? The HR associate will like type in here, they'll go headhunt. They'll be like, biomedical engineer. Then what will happen is it'll populate with all the names, all right? And this all depends on the keywords that you have in your profile, and it'll populate. And hopefully what we try to do is we'll try to get your search as high as possible on the top of the list. And what they'll do is they'll reach out to you. And it's happened to me many times. Hey, it'll be like, hi, Maria Nguyen, I'm a HR associate or director of such and such from AstraZeneca. You know, we're currently looking for senior hospital representatives just like yourself. Seems like you've taken a look at your profile to date. Seems like you have a lot of experience in the hospital space, specifically with antibodies, monoclonal antibodies and stuff like that. So this is what they do. And they'll reach out to you. They do it to entry level people too, because they don't want to advertise. Advertising costs too much. And not just that, like the search costs too much. And, you know, when they take on someone that's really junior, what happens is they always say this, right? In all companies, even if, no matter how experienced you are, they'll say to me, do you know what? We understand that you need that first year to really acclimatize to the work culture, because it may have been different to the rest. We know your experience, but we always calculate in a sense where the first year you work here, you're not lucratively effective. It's only second year and the years after that we see you making money for us, you know. So that's the metrics they go by. So that's from one approach, like the HR director and associates will headhunt you. Now, on the other aspect is what we help or what we coach our members to do when we get you set up on a LinkedIn profile is we teach you how to network. So what this looks like is something along the lines of this now. So say for instance, you sit down with me and I'll say to you, all right, okay, so what are the top companies that you want to work for? I'd say we think of 3. Okay, now think of the very first one that you really want. Let's focus on that. Go to their website, right, and do the due diligence. So say, for instance, example purposes, I say Samsung. So I'll go, okay, Jane, you want to work at Samsung? Just do a bit of background research on what Samsung are about, visions and values-wise, and try to understand what their business model is and what the ethos are. Now, what then I'll get you to do is type in Samsung at the top. What will happen is it will populate with people who work at Samsung who live near you, right? Don't target your HR directors and associates. They don't want to hear from you. Don't target your big C-level people, managing directors. Target your everyday working people. So say, for instance, Darren here says biomedical scientist. Say he's a software engineer. Say something like that. Now, I'll click into Darren's profile and I'll do my due diligence on his background too, because it's important for us to understand people's career paths, because it can tell us a little bit more about what they've been through. And it gives you a sense of where you can ask questions, right? Because there's no point in going to Darren and saying, hey Darren, my name's Maria. I understand you're working at Samsung. I just want to know if there are any career opportunities. You know what? People will shut you down. You have to have this robust conversation where you proactively want to know a lot about the industry, which you do, and also understand his career path, Darren's career path to date. And, you know, and you ask questions like that, like what are the key things that you would tell a university student making that transition from, you know, academia to corporate? What are the key differences? You know, I've noticed that you worked in the government sector. What's the difference between private and government? And what would you recommend? Questions like that, because people are always willing to help, but they don't just like questions like, oh, hey, do you have any career opportunities? Now, asking about him, his achievements, try to understand his work career history to date. As Dale Carnegie said, and he wrote in the book that everyone should read, How to Win Friends and Influence People. People love talking about themselves, but they also like helping others out. Now, do that, have that robust conversation. And at the end of the conversation, you should be saying something along the lines of, thank you so much, Darren, for your time. This information has been highly useful. I hope one day down the track, when I'm a bit more experienced, I could return the favor And also lastly, is it all right, say about in 4 to 5 months time, I touch base with you just to see how you are in terms of career-wise, and if the industry's changed, or maybe you can give me a few key things that you've seen in the industry you've observed, right? And also lastly, at the end of that conversation, say to Darren, thank you so much for your time again. And also, if you come across any career opportunities that I might be interested in, just let me know. There you go. So you've pretty much sold yourself to Darren. Like, you pretty much have informed him you are proactive in your career. You take this industry very seriously and your career development really seriously. And also you're very observant and you want to learn and know a whole lot more. You know what he'll do? Down the track, whilst he's working in Samsung 2 months' time, he'll get an email that'll pop up from HR. Dear employee, we are currently looking for an entry level, blah, 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 blah. Now, he'd be like, do you know what? That Jane, she made such an impression on me. Hey, she's going to represent me in the best light, because if I refer her, she might get the job. I'll receive $2,000. So that's where the magic happens now. All right. So we always say to people, do you know what? You have to have a robust LinkedIn profile, but not just that, for headhunters to search you, but you have to be really robust in your networking and conversations as well. Do this to how many people and you'll get there. And what we've found with a lot of, amongst COVID, a lot of the jobs are hidden. And we've been able to coach student members to land that first job or internship and so forth. So that is a hidden job market. That's step 1. Now, let's go to step 2. Step 2 is your paper-based CV. And good news, paper-based CVs aren't as hard as what people make them out to be. You only need to know one thing, and that one thing is to understand that robots do the filtering, not humans. Okay? So that was my wide awakening back in 2010 when I was in recruitment for sales and marketing in science as well as engineering. Very interesting, pharmaceuticals. So, what happens is, at Professionals Australia, we pretty much have knowledge of the application tracking software system. So we know the statistics of what gets deleted or not. So a big whopping 80% of paper-based CVs are being deleted. Now, do you know why they're being deleted? It's not because of the experience or education, nothing to do with that. It's all the fact that when you have it in your mission statement, no, it's really tiny, so sorry. If you have it in your mission statement where you're like, in my final year of study, my GPA is X amount, I am specializing in XYZ, and I'm looking for a graduate role for 2021 or 2022 or internship or what have you. Now, to be quite frank, they don't care about your GPA. Honestly, they don't. Right? That's not why they hire people. So at Professionals Australia, if you remember with us, we'll sit down with you and we pretty much get rid of this statement because, let's be frank, it's too generic, and we replace it with something that, and I'm going to drop a keyword, encompasses at least one of your soft skills. So when we talk about soft skills, we're talking about interpersonal relationships, troubleshooting, problem solving, stuff like team leading, that kind of thing. And never ever disqualify your casual job working at Macca's and so forth because you have a ton of soft skills there that you can pretty much quantify and turn them into achievements. All right, soft skills. So we pretty much say, you know what, we'll sit down with you, we pretty much change this generic statement to a robust paragraph that will bypass robots, right, and present you in the very best light. Okay, so the next part would be 15% of CVs are being deleted for not listing achievements. All right, and again, a lot of students say, do you know what? I haven't worked in the industry. What kind of achievements could I put down? I can't quantify anything of that. Yes, you can, because again, like as I tell you, achievements are mainly soft skills and they are quantifiable. All right, if you're volunteering for, say, a not-for-profit organization outside, that so counts. If you work at McDonald's, Hungry Jack's, all that jazz, that all counts. Please, it does all count. So with Professionals Australia, we pretty much sit down with you and we pretty much come up with a dozen, or at least a dozen solid achievements as to reasons why an employer should employ you, right? So it's not hard for us. Like, a lot of us have worked in the industry. In the first place, we've been in corporate, right? There's a big difference between corporate and government. The way they employ, promote, very, very different. Talk more about that later. And we pretty much have a lot of members, and we've previously been in the industry, which I have been, we know what they look for. All right. They pretty much look for your soft skills. I can't stress that out enough. All right. They look for your key behaviors, because obviously you gotta get along well with people that you're working with. And hence the reason why you've got group projects at university. That is just a snapshot of how it's like in the real working world. So if you found that you've gone to a group assignment and you're like, oh my God, no one wants to catch up, it's all over the place. Harsh reality is that's exactly what happens in the workplace. All right. The job isn't hard to do. It's managing other people. That's why soft skills are really important. They look for not as much as you think, right? And they care very little for your technical skills. Because at the end of the day, we're all students, we've all studied, we've all graduated. It's all about your soft skills and your key behaviors, okay? Whether you can do the job or not. So that's what they look for. Now, for us, I got to say, we do show off a bit. So with us, right, Professionals Australia, our strike rate when it comes to having a student land an interview, applications wise, we pretty much guarantee one interview that will land in every 3 to 4 applications. And even during COVID, we've been doing pretty well. And, I think it's just, you just have to know that, like, previous to this, like when we talk to students, before they signed up, we always ask the questions like, oh, look, have you had interviews in the past? And okay, and what kind of questions have you come across and so forth? And why did you get caught up in that? And we'll talk more about it. We'll workshop that, because, generally no one tells you these things, right? You can go on the internet and search it up. I suppose you can do all of that, but you have to know someone that works in the industry to understand how it all works, right? And what they value. So we really, I can honestly say I've only worked here since January, and I wear this with a badge of honor. Like, we really do care and we want to make a difference. And a lot of us have worked in the industry, and we pretty much know exactly what we're looking for, right? So once you land a job, I would say I think it's a no-brainer to say that you need to be 150% all over the questions and answers. Okay, now you got to understand, like, the interview is not about determining your technical skills. They wouldn't even waste their time bringing you in, right? Because it's a lot of time and resources. The interview is all about, again, your soft skills, again, your key behaviors, because they feel as if people who have, great behavioral skill, not only behavior skills, but key behaviors aligned with the company, works well within the group, the team that they're in, with their line manager, and also with adjacent other teams like sales, marketing, other areas that have nothing to do with yourself, all right? Because if you've got really, I hate saying the word, high emotional intelligence, emotional quotient, you're able to work well with others and, take on leadership skills, interpersonal relationship skills to get, a team from point A to point B, right? So, and they care very little for your technical skills. Like I said, they already know you can do the job. That's why they brought you in the interview in the first place. And sometimes what we see is that, as I said, when we've talked to students before they sign up with us, and we ask them, right, so interviews wise, what happened there? What occurred there? And we're not there to name and shame. We're pretty much trying to understand, key areas of development that we can work on, right? And sometimes we see students that we're all prepared, out of no fault of their own. That happens. Like, it's happened to me plenty of times. And they spent so much time in their own head, trying to, say, predict the questions that are going to be asked. And not just that, like trying to come up with answers on the spot. And when you're in that frantic moment, you can't display your true self, of your true soft skills, your communication and listening and behavior. So, which is a shame. Now, as I mentioned, we don't let our members do that. So we pretty much tell our members, I'll give you an example. We did a talk yesterday, a collaboration with Monash engineers, mechanical engineers. And a girl pretty much said to me, look, Maria, I really need an interview. I've got an interview this Friday. I go, do you know what? She goes, can I sign up and get it done straight away? She goes, yep. I go, yep, bang. So we fast tracked her process, and her interview training is tomorrow. So we pretty much prioritize this. We block out, say, about an hour and a half to 2 hours where we have a Zoom meeting with you like this, one-on-one, and go through all the questions and answers that might be asked. We talk about, say, the company's visions and values websites, and say, for instance, how you can deliver, why you're in line with the company's visions and values and business models in that interview. We pretty much go through all the key behavioral questions, up, down, all around, and we only release you knowing that, hey, you've got this, all right? So that is interview preparation with Professionals Australia, and why you need to be on top of that. Now, say for instance, you got the interview and you score, you're like, yes, wow, I've got a letter of offer and now I've got a contract. Now, let me tell you one thing. Do not sign the contract if you haven't looked at it with a fine tooth comb, okay? Now, I'll tell you why specifically. So just a bit about contract reviews and contracts. Now, contract reviews, normally when you get a letter of offer and a contract, and to have it reviewed by a lawyer normally costs $600 to $800. With Professionals Australia, with a membership, it's a free service. We just tell our members, look, upload it into our system. We've got really tough industrial lawyers that know everything about STEM because they worked in this industry and blah, blah, blah. This is what we specialize in now, right? And they look at everything. Now, the first thing they would look at, well, we would look at, us as industrial lawyers will look at the starting salary. Now, starting salary doesn't really matter at the start, but obviously because everyone will be on the same amount, though you do need to know the industry average. And with us, we pretty much survey everyone in every job, every level, every year, so we know what the industry average is. So it's very nifty to know where because what happens is sometimes in a contract, they'll put down, say, example purposes, 50K. Now, when they give you the offer, they give you 50K, you've got to be mindful that that's the level that they give you, because they know that you'll eventually negotiate up. All right. So you got to know the industry average. And we've got surveys that we do, big reports, huge reports. I can't even go through all of it because it's just too much about the breakdown as to why that occurs. So again, like I said, our legal team pretty much, if they see something that isn't of average, they'll tell our members, hey, look, go back to employer and say that, look, you understand what the industry average is. So if you ask them nicely, that your future employers, they'll happily fix it up for you. So that's one, starting salary. Now, the next one to pay attention to would be position. I won't say position description yet. No, it will be conditions. All right. So your working conditions will determine who you know, how you're trained, and what you do. The 3 critical areas for your career progression. All right. They'll lead you for in your first, second, third, fourth, fifth job, so forth. Right. Promotion and stuff. Now, let's take a look at your probationary period. Redundancy. So you need to pay attention to redundancy, because sometimes you see a company and you'll walk into a company, trust me, you'll pay attention to this. People will be like, an announcement will be made through HR. We are going to restructure. Restructuring means letting people go. All right. Trying to recoup some money, letting people go. And that happens out of no fault of your own. So redundancy is a small amount of pay that they give you, so you can use, to survive, pay off your bills and your rent whilst you look for another job, right? So that's another thing to look at. Now let's deep dive into other areas. Now, probationary period. Okay, I cannot stress this out more than enough. In the prehistoric days around my time, probationary period, when I was in my first commercial lab, the probationary period was only 3 months. Now, it's gone up to 6 months. And especially these times, I've seen, just before the lockdown happened, about 13th of March around, I was talking to a civil engineer. Oh my God, so a bit of a story about him. He was studying his course, civil engineering, structural engineering, something like that. Then he landed a job before graduation. Smart dude, right? Just went ahead and did that, all right? Now, him and 10 other graduates were working for this civil engineering company. After 10 months, they were told that they were incompetent and didn't meet expectations now. Now, they were like, oh, okay, interesting. They looked at their contract because they were like, yeah, surely we're entitled to a redundancy. They weren't, because their probationary period was 2 years. So in those 2 years, they could have been dropped like they were hot anytime, which they were, and then given this weak excuse of, you guys didn't meet expectations. So this is a reality. This does happen. Hence the reason why I feel really strongly about this. Do not sign a contract, but look at your probationary period. Tells you a lot. That's just one. Now, the next thing to look at will be your position description. Now, very, very important, because in your PD, they call it PD for short, just in case you don't know, like I didn't know either. They'll say, okay, here's your PD attached to your letter of offer. Now, when you look at your PD, you have to look at the job descriptions. It has to make you a bit nervous, because if you know everything, your career is just going to plateau. Though if you've got stuff that you have never done before, that means you're going to develop. Your career will develop. So that's something you'd really need to pay attention to. All right, probationary period. Also, another thing to look out for will be restraint of trade. So I used to see this. I saw this early on in my pharmaceutical sales career now. You know, they would hire a bunch of rookies. Like I was rookie. I know I had sales experience previous to that in scientific instruments and that, but pharmaceutical sales are very different now. Then they'll put us under rookies. Now, I had a work colleague who pretty much worked at a competing company. So I used to bump into her at doctors' clinics, you know, whilst we're sort of waiting for doctors to sign off on his samples or sell stuff. Now, this person was let go, you know, I mean, so she wasn't let go. That's it. She resigned from a job because she wanted to go to another competing company. All right. And what happened was she resigned, she signed the other contract, but she didn't realize that at where she was at, they said to her, well, you're resigned from us, but you can't go to that competitor's company because you signed a contract where you can't work for the competitors for the next 6 months. So you know what she had to do? Because she was an ex-pharmacist, by the way. She had to go back and do pharmacy, you know, working as a pharmacist, wait for that 6-month period to expire and then go back into pharmaceutical sales, which is obviously much more lucrative, hence the reason why she's not working as a pharmacist. So that's a prime reason why restraint of trade is really important. And I've seen it, we've heard it within the legal team, within a company. So not company, I mean organization. So yeah, pay particular attention to that. Should be no longer than 1 month, right? Now, also IP. We're all STEM people. Hopefully we'll come across, discover something groundbreaking. And, you know, we don't want to walk away from a job where we've signed a contract that says everything you discovered that's groundbreaking, that makes a lot of money and is historic, is ours. All right, so we pretty much, our legal team cancels this out, changes this all, and makes it into something that's really 2 pages long. So and it makes sure that you walk away with your IP. And when HR read this 2-page long document, they go cross-eyed. So those are the key things to look at. And also, lastly, salary review. We talk a lot about this as well. We have a lot of professional talks about this and webinars and coaching on this. Every year, say about after April or around April, you get your performance review. It really depends. Certain companies go by different financial calendars, you know, but what you'll find is it's mainly around April. Now, we pretty much coach you on how to have that discussion with regards to salary review, how to document all the achievements you've done since you've worked there, you've achieved since you worked there, and, you know, talk in a professional sense of how you can approach the topic, not broach it, approach it and say, look, I've done X, Y, Z. Now, I would say based on my achievements, accolades to date, I think it's really important for me to, for you to really pay me or give me that pay rise that I do deserve accordingly. So that's one, okay? Contract, so that's the end of that. And also understand too, like, I have to preface this because I've seen it. And the thing is, if I was in my first year out and if I was a failure, not failure, but I was let go, I would think myself as a failure. So understand that statistics have it that 1 in 5 graduate scientists fail in their first job within 18 months. Okay, so that's very normal. And the reason why I talk about this is that it's really important for you to understand that once you sign the contract and get the job, congratulations, you're on your way to your first job. You know, it's really important to always be professionally developing. All right, you can't just say, oh, look, that was so hard, that took so long, I'm just going to kick back and relax. Do that for a month, but always be like developing as a person. All right, because these things, what I've mentioned here, exist. Now, you know, it's important for you to always professionally develop because you want to have an exceptional career, not just an average one. And understand that, you know, a lot of companies, they pretty much promote people, again, based on keyword, surprise, surprise, soft skills. They feel that people with soft skills make better managers, project leaders, sales, and negotiators. Let's face it, we live in a commercial world. Okay, and what you tend to find, and what I've seen too, and if you talk to others in the industry, people who are too good technically, they always stay in that role and they never get promoted at all, right? Yeah, so it's all about people skills too, yeah? Okay. So understand too that a lot of companies also, they don't allocate a lot of time for industry training. They only allocate, say, about 1 day per year, and that's average. That's what Australian Bureau of Statistics have told us, okay? Now, with Professionals Australia, we have professional development programs, all right? PA graduate program. So our training again is always one-on-one face-to-face. And we guarantee you to make you the strongest start during your critical first 2 years of your career, right? Now, this encompasses the successful trial period, the pay progression, how to operate in the professional sense, and how to, really know what you're worth and ask what you're worth in a professional manner, yeah? It also guarantees you rapid promotion, because if you're working on your soft skills and with professional development courses outside of work, right, most of the time work don't give you that anymore, right? It's just changed so much. Then, most likely your soft skills will just strengthen. It will go from strength to strength and you'll be promoted. And also we entail and we will allow for smooth certification. So that's what we have too, all right? Now, again, this is the membership offer. It's $4 per month, as I mentioned. I'll put up the link up at the end of this chat, but I'll also then, let's talk about more the women's parts, right? Not women's parts, but the gender pay gap. So that's just a link. $4 per month guarantees you training from start to finish. Not just that, so we've got a few engineers here too. We also have, the RPNG program. So we understand, I think you guys know, New South Wales was the last state of the East Coast to finally approve the fact that engineers should be fully registered. Of course they should be. We can't have people who aren't engineers, who are, I don't know what they are, and they claim they're engineers, build something and then it breaks. All right, and that's safety. And that was happening for a long time. Queensland was the only state that made sure that everyone, it was mandatory, right, compulsory that people should be fully registered engineers. So New South Wales has since jumped on the bandwagon. Victoria only did this, say, about last year. So we've got professional RPNG program where you can register up. It's very, very user friendly, and it's also cheaper than others. I won't say who the other place is, and it guarantees that you're pretty much certified as an engineer. So I think that pretty much sums it up. So we've also got a Facebook page. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop sharing, and I was going to open up. Let's open this up to questions. So I'm going to open up to a few questions, if anyone. I see numbers here. All right, that's all right. Okay, so I won't open it up to questions yet. Actually, I'm just going to firstly bring up the report. A few seconds. It's going to take a while. All right. Where is it? Here it is. Here it is. All right. Now, I'm going to share my screen. A few seconds. All right, so let's take a look at this report now. Let's maximize this business now. All right. So now I'm going to tell you right now, the gender pay gap in STEM is real. It's not just in STEM, it's in everything. But I talk about STEM, and we talk about STEM because we survey, we've expertise in this, Professionals Australia and STEM, right? So we've got the numbers to back it up because we do a lot of research surveys on this. Now, you can take a look here, right here, engineering gender pay gap. Okay, so only 12% of the engineering workforce is female. And you've got, 24% of that in chemical engineering, 40, right. So the pay gap, the pay gap, only 15 of those enrolled in engineering courses are university of female, right? So there's a variation of disciplines. And I think what this is saying is that when you're a female and when you're in the industry, you'll get 12% less than what a male gets. That's what I'm reading from this. Now, you may think, 12%, that's not much. That's a whole chunk, because I don't know what the base salary, or depends on which level, but say for instance, you're talking about 12, you're getting paid of a base of 100K, all right? Now, as a female, imagine if you were working alongside your male colleague, you've had the same amount of experience, if not you're more experienced, and not just that, you do more work, which to be quite frank, a lot of females do a lot more of. I'm just telling you the truth from what I've seen. Now, 12% is not just 12%, it's actually more than that, especially if it comes in volumes. And this is the harsh reality, okay? And I'll just talk about each industry, and I could tell you my experiences and what the reasons why this occurs, right? Now, so, and also take a look at the pharmacy gender pay gap. So I don't know if anyone here is in pharmacy, but you got to understand that 62.5% of the registered pharmacists are female. And they say that, this is something that I learned from someone, I think in the pharmacy area of Professionals Australia. They're saying, you know what, in pharmacy, because there's so many women in this area, women, and I hate to say, we have the propensity to not ruffle any feathers, to not, we don't like uncomfortable conversations, or we pretty much get conditioned to avoid it, all right? Because in society, we pretty much get told, if we speak up, then we're difficult, right? And if you look at history, if you take a look at history, women who used to speak out were deemed witches and were waterboarded and lynched. So that just tells you, so the reasons why, I suppose we have that propensity because we're conditioned to avoid those uncomfortable situations, right? And therefore the pay gap is at minus 2.8%. That still is, it's like 2.8%, but you got to understand that's also in relative to the fact that like a lot of women are in this workforce. So because they've pretty much, I suppose, are being paid less, then 2.8, they think, oh, it's not much, but there's not many men in it anyways compared to them. So in actual fact, you can bloke this out and say it's probably 10% or more, okay? I would say industry standard. Now, that's the pharmacy gender pay group. Now, let's look at IT, all right? Because I know some people here in tech. Let's move this about, all right? So, all right, that is, you can see there, 20.6% gender pay gap, all right? So females comprise of only 28% of the IT workforce. All right, only 16% of the IT course enrollments are female. Okay, and females account for only 25% of those with post-secondary qualifications in Australia. So only 1 in 4 IT graduates are female. Okay, so if you take a look at this, all right, let's use a real life example. So I don't know if you guys know, Tinder was created by a bunch of, I don't know if they were from MIT, but there were a bunch of males, right? And except for 1 female. Now, don't know if you know the story. These guys they came up with like Tinder, the whole concept, and she had a big key part to play in it. 1 girl out of, I think, 8 guys. As soon as they took off, do you know what they did, the boys? They kicked her out, right? Kicked her out. I don't know why. I think from her point of view, she said it was obviously because, they didn't want to hear the female's perspective. They were a bit misogynist. That's what I heard. So, you know what she went ahead and did? Ran off and created Bumble. And I think Bumble is a lot more successful now. I don't know if you guys watched ABC and watched Four Corners on the special that they did on Tinder and how horrible it is when it came to listening to females who've been sexually assaulted and also stalked. And when they made complaints, it was ignored. Right? In Bumble, that's not the case. They take it seriously. So that's an example of the fact that, women get treated like second-class citizens. And in IT, you can obviously see here, 20.6% lower than the male, all right? Than the male. And not just that, like, I'm giving you an example of real life of what occurs. And that's probably just only a snapshot, right? Science, this most definitely does happen. Okay, as you can see, that's 14% pay gap, science gender pay gap. So, and also STEM gender pay gap in general, that encompasses everything, 22.8%. Now, I'm just going to give you an example of my experience. Perrin asked me to share this because I shared it with her. And that was my first dose of understanding how females are being paid. And I'll also openly disclose the salary amount as well and stuff like that. So, one moment, I remember thinking one time, right, I was working at Abbott Pharmaceuticals. So those who follow me eventually on LinkedIn, you'll see my career progression. So it was my first time working in pharmaceutical sales, moving from scientific sales and recruitment. Now, when I first started, the thing with pharmaceutical sales or sales in general, they pay you very well. So they'll pay you a base salary, then they'll pay you a bonus. On top of that, you got the car allowance as well, and tools of the trade, phone and the laptop as well, and the internet. They pay for the internet, so they pay for quite a bit. Now, when I stepped into the role, and like I was doing, it was challenging at the start, but eventually, like, because they really support you, I was doing pretty well. And then after 4 years, I think it was in my 4th year, I had my performance review, and I pretty much said, look, these are the key reasons why I should get a substantial pay rise. And the reason why is because I'm number 2, I'm second out of 46 teams nationwide, number 3, number 1, number 2, I've acquired a lot of market share during this time. And not just that, number 3, I was the only person in Australia to sell a product that wasn't on PBS. So that's a big challenge. I don't know if you guys know. So I went ahead and did that, and I got rejected. I pretty much was told, you know what, we've had a tough year, and therefore we can only award you at 1.2%. That's nothing, right? Because normally it's the average of about 2.5. I'm just telling you in general, in many companies. So I thought to myself, okay, interesting. Now, apparently I heard whispers about all the guys in the company, in the state, getting substantial pay rises. So in my mind, I calculated, I think to myself, so if they got substantial pay rises, they must have taken that, 1.8% out of mine that I believe I was entitled to, that I earned, and given away. And not just that, you can understand a lot of guys, girls do a lot, all right? Women do have the propensity to do a lot in their personal life and their work life as well. So, you'd hear rumors about my work colleagues, the guys, only like selling to doctors, say 2 hours a day, and then heading off to play golf. And that wasn't a lie. It was the truth, right? So what happened was I was disgruntled, and I thought to myself, you know what, I want to move. No one's promoting me to hospital sales representative from GP representative. I'm going to go and work for another company. I'm going to look for something else. So I just went out to my networks. There was no job that was advertised. So again, this is where the hidden job market really does exist, and it's real. Then I reached out to my networks, and they said, oh my God, we're currently looking for someone. They would love you. All right, let me refer you. So I went ahead and did that. I also, made a few phone calls to external recruiters, because they're epic salespeople, so ones that aren't in the company. And I said to them, look, I just want to know how much I'll be worth, all right? And for them, their main aim is to make sure to sell you at a higher price and give you big salary as possible, because they get a big chunk out of that. The higher, the better. And they went ahead and told me, they said, someone like you should be earning, all right, you should be earning, say, about, I reckon, 95K, right, base only. And I was like, oh my God, it's daylight robbery. I'm getting paid at the current moment like 72. So what happened was I met up with some of my work colleagues, and one guy in my team, he pretty much, I can tell because of sexism, he sort of liked me, and he always wanted to tell me stuff. So he said to me, hey, can I tell you something, Maria? You need to get out. I can tell you for a fact, us guys, we're getting paid 30% more than you girls. And there was only 4 girls in the team of Victoria compared to 20 guys. Now, once I got my job offer and the amount that I wanted with that other company, which was Shire Pharmaceuticals, I then I called a meeting with all the girls, and I said to them, look, I'm going to be very frank. This is how much I'm getting. What are you guys getting? And I was shocked, because some of them that I know who have worked there for, say, about, I worked there for 4 years. They worked there for 7 or 8, and they were given the title of senior, were still getting paid about 50 base. Now, that's a primo example of the gender pay gap, what I've seen. All right. And I already knew those guys were getting paid a lot, but I didn't know what amount. And it was only that one person, that guy, because he had a bit of a crush on me, he told me. Now, the gender pay gap is very real. And I think my sister was worked at Maya for a very long time, and she saw this too. And, I think the key thing to really understand and to know is that you got to dig deep and know what you're worth. All right. And also number 2, all right, I love the fact that women are so holistic, and they're so much powerful than what men think that they are. All right. So they always think, oh, you're so irrational and you're so crazy, and we're not. All right. So you just have to dig deep. and you think to yourself, all right, now this is what I can offer versus a male. All right, I've got the holistic approach. I can see the bigger picture. Not just that, I do a lot more. I'm very hardworking. So now, in saying that, in understanding that, in writing this down, also you got to be very smart and very, 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 I would say, I wouldn't say cunning, but very divisive. When you go through your career and you have those little wins, always list them down, right? List them down, because you don't know when you're going to get that appraisal. Sometimes they just call appraisal like that. Sometimes they fast forward it like that. That's when you go into the interview, the interview with your boss, your line manager, and say, okay, cool. Now let's talk about achievements, and now let's talk about what you're going to award me. All right. So you got to be very smart. Do your due diligence. List everything down, because I seem to find that a lot of women do this more than men in the industry. They do, because guys pretty much, I think they go in with a sense of, well, do you know what? I've worked really hard. I'm entitled to this much. But with us women, we're a bit more, I would say, we pay attention to detail, a lot more to detail. And what you find is when you walk into the industry, the conversations from a female is very robust and very, I would say, it's hard hitting. So, as a female, I think a few key take home points is you need to, 1, know what you're worth. 2, document everything that you do within work. All right, the little wins, small wins, okay? And also 3, use your holistic approach and also your calm approach. I think that's what's great about women when it comes to that discussion of your pay, all right? And if you get rejected, not rejected, if they say, sorry, we can't award you that much, don't do what I did and just let it lie down. Just go, can you explain to me why? Let's break it down as to reasons why. Right? And I think one thing I can tell you is that if you don't get awarded that pay gap, it's best to push on to another company. And that's the problem. Like, what you'll find is when you pretty much look up, say, an engineering or computer science or a male's profile on LinkedIn, they've got such long tenure at one company, right? Whereas with women, we have to jump around, because most of the time the employers don't want to give us a pay rise. And what we do is we're like, fine, we'll go somewhere else. And that's what always happens. The problem with that is once you jump around, us females, when we jump around, we can't have access to that long service leave, 10 years, it's now 8 point something, but that long service leave, 3 months. So that's where we also get stung with the fact that we get paid lower as well. Okay, so I think what's really important to understand is, what I'm trying to plant the seeds now for you guys to understand that, these are the few key things that you should be working on, you should do, as not just for yourself, but as a whole collective, as women in STEM as well, to lift those standards. And I think another thing to be conscious of is also when you're pregnant and you go mat leave in a private sector, commercial area, they try to get rid of you. And my sister's like, at the moment, she's a project manager for a startup company, a tech startup company. And she pretty much is telling me, she goes, I had to talk with my manager. And I've actually said, you know what? I'm onto you. I know this is what's going to happen, because it happens all the time. And it's unfortunate that we think of it as the norm. I mean, in my first scientific sales role, I stepped into a scientific selling HPLC instruments in a mat leave position, and they try to get rid of the predecessor before me too. So it happens, and these are the key things to be aware of. And that's where you can only, think hard, dig deep, and come up with a plan and a strategy. All right. So I hope that was really useful. I am going to open this up for any questions now, and we can, hopefully I can answer it now. So thank you so much for this opportunity, Perrin and Carla.
Thank you, Maria. That was great. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and all the tips and advice. That was fantastic.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Sorry. Yeah, does anyone?
I was going to ask the same thing.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions when it comes to your industry specific, like what your industry that you want to get into specifically? And does anyone have any questions of, say, for instance, job interviews they walked into and they've come across a curly question and they've sort of like tripped over and like fallen over? I mean, that's happened to me. Thank you, Debika. Sorry, thank you so much for that feedback. I'm just trying to be as useful as possible. I feel very passionate about women in STEM. My God. And the gender pay gap is real. My friend works at the Royal Bank of Scotland. This is not in STEM, but this is gender pay gap. She tells me that it's what occurred with her, and that's why she's jumped. But the issue is like, she even told me when she was at her work situation, there was another girl that she was working with. She's an investment banker. Now, once her work colleague got pregnant, they pushed her out, you know, and her work colleague had to sue the Royal Bank of Scotland. Now, this is a reality. This is what happens. And I think for me to explain to you girls, you ladies, about this now on a student level, when you step into corporate, it's great to be mindful of it, and you can come up with strategies on how you can overcome. And like I said, like really document everything, do your due diligence, and make sure you don't, of course, you respectfully say, you know what, you've only offered me about 1.2%. I need to know the reasons why. And if you're given that amount, then, you know, I would say move on to another, whatever. But Benz, for questions, I'm scared they will ask personal questions. What questions are they allowed to ask? I've heard they will ask do you know what? People have asked if you're married, to say, I'm not at liberty to tell you, right? Seriously, when they say if you're married, can I tell you, not even worth working for them. I say that now. If they ask you a question like that, that means down the track, they'll make your life hell. That's an indicator, right? It's no different from going to a date. You go on your first date, a dumb question gets asked, go, okay, that's an indicator of what you're going to be like in future-wise. Sorry, I don't want to date you, all right? It's a relationship, you know? So the questions that they ask, I'll tell you what the questions that they'll ask. And these should be the only questions you should be focusing on. They ask you for your key behavioral questions. So they'll say something along the lines of, have pen and paper ready, because this will be important for you. They'll say something like, all right, so have you come across a situation where you've had a conflict with a work colleague? How did you deal with that situation? They'll ask that, all right? Because they want to know, because that happens all the time, but they want to know how you would go about in dealing with that situation, right? And the steps. So we teach you stuff like the STAR technique. What I would have said, and I've done this before, I'd say something along the lines of, yes, look, do you know what? We're all human beings, and we all always have different opinions. And, you know, we try to work cohesively together as best possible. Though there was an instance where I did have conflict with someone, right? Situation was, you know, I wasn't on the same page with the work colleague that I was with. For some reason, she thought that I was against her. She didn't answer my phone calls. She didn't, you know, respond to my emails and so forth. And my technique was to, you know, technique was to ensure that we were on the same page. Because if we weren't on the same page, we won't make sales results. We won't win awards. Now, all right, what I actioned out was I pretty much, you know, put my ego aside and asked her for help. When I actually felt I didn't need help, I was like, do you know what? I don't understand this. Can you explain it to me? You're very smart. Can you explain it to me? So I disarmed her with that. Then I was able to action out a plan where, you know, I tried to understand why. Was it me who offended her? And I do apologize. And what resulted was that we became number 2 sales team out of like 46 team nationwide. So those are the types of questions they'll be asking. They'll be asking, have you come across conflict? What do you do? Or have you come across a situation where, you know, you've taken on an assignment and you failed? Now, what happened here? So that's not a trap question. They want to understand that, you know, in general, people fail, but it's how you recover. So the saying is, it's not about the failure, it's about the recovery. And then if you can answer in the STAR sort of process of how you recovered and what you learned from that and what you did moving forward, you know, then how you rose above that, then they will love you even more. Right? So it's questions around conflict. It's questions about failure and how you rose from that. And it will be also questions about how you've taken initiative. If you had a passion project. Now, you should always have a passion project, okay? I never did in my earlier career. So in my sales career, the good thing about sales is they expect so much from you. They expect the rainbow to like come out of your mouth, okay? Now, they do. So you get sort of creative, you get stressed out, but you get creative, and they will ask you stuff like, was there ever a time where, you know, you identified a sort of weakness within a process or system or what have you? Now, what did you do? So they want to hear stuff like, you know what, I took this on as my passion project. You know, I spoke to my manager. I said, hey, I can identify some area that needs development. Why don't I take this on? Why don't I put up a strategy and then present it to you as a business case. And therefore, you know, depending on my arguments, what I've proven, it's completely up to you whether you want to take it, like you want to implement what I've put forward into your system, whatever. So those are the kind of questions that they ask. They don't ask personal questions. And if they ask you if you're married, it's not the one for you. Okay. Now, I did have a question. Not sure if it could take too much of your time. Oh, who cares? I've got all the time in the world right now. Yeah. So sorry. Would be great if you could. Yeah. Otherwise, I just got into a graduate program and got an offer that is conditional on clearing a medical assessment. I went through it, called them up to check, and they said it all looks good, and I cleared it. But they aren't giving an unconditional offer or anything written. No, they have to give it written. I'm so sick. What I'm sick of hearing now, it's just because now we're going through troubling times. Everything should be written. There should always be a contract. There should always be a position description. I'm so sick of hearing like job offers where they don't offer that. Now, that's because, you know, when you pretty much start working, you're pretty much in your mind committing to staying there for a while because you want to develop and progress with the company, right? Now, you know, if you don't have something written like in paper, what happens is, say they get rid of you, obviously you'll be in a shitty situation. But not just that, during that time, opportunities may have like flown past you where you could have gotten a secure contract, and you know, you could have like worked for a company for like a year or two. So I whenever I see a place that doesn't offer a contract, which I'm seeing more now than ever, I'm like, don't even go there. All right. Yeah. So wait, says that the conditional contract is a final and binding one. Wait, but they're given an unconditional offer, a conditional offer. Okay. So what's a conditional offer? Like, can you say specifically what it is? I'll just wait in the meantime. I'll talk about another question that I'm sure that you guys gotten in interviews. I absolutely hate this question, but it's something that you can easily answer, and they'll ask that. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Now, you know, my personal response is 5 years' time, give me a crystal ball. I don't know. But when you get asked that question, obviously the main thing is you want to develop and move with the company as it develops and evolves, all right, and grows. So the best way to answer this is, look, in all honesty, for me, my key priority is to be professionally developing all the time, because that also helps with my personal development. Now, taking a look at your company, your business model, what you've achieved in the past 5 years, I can quickly determine in the next 5 years, it's going to be very colorful and vibrant and very positive. So, you know, for me, if you're talking about the next 5 years of my career, like in 5 years' time, where would I see myself? I like to say that I'd see myself making a strong contribution to your company, and also growing and learning and being dynamic, all right, and achieving, you know. So that's the kind of answer I would say to a question like that. Now, let's see. So say that it is a final offer. They already told me that I've passed all pre-employment checks, and that should be fine. So what happens is, I've had a medical too. I've done all those checks as well. They checked if I could hear properly or something like that. Now, they will give you the offer. They've given you verbally, but to be honest, don't count on it yet. Just wait for the contract to come through, okay? That's when, and then take a look at the conditions and everything, and then therefore you're like, okay, cool, all right? So that's all I can say in terms of that and answering that. Any other questions, guys? Let me see, anything regarding, say, engineering, registration, why it's important to really pay attention to this and get into a RPN program. So the RPN, just a bit about the professional registration of being an engineer. So, all right, in the past, when there was no registration, what used to happen was graduates would start their job, and this is what happened in Queensland. So they put this in place, and there was a dam that was being built. I don't know where it was. Fudge, I forgot. Now, what happened was it pretty much it could cause flooding. It dismantled and it flooded, and what the company did at the time was then pointed at the two young graduates and tried to blame them and sue them. Now, that is a primary reason why registration for engineering should exist, because that is not the graduate's fault. they weren't trained properly, okay? If it's in the first or second year of the career, that is the employer's fault, okay? So that's when registration, compulsory registration for engineering took place. In Queensland, it's been here for there for 5 years. Now, what that means is in the first 5 years of your career as an engineer, any engineer, it puts the onus on your company to ensure, the employer to ensure that they pretty much train you properly. Okay, and if they don't, they get penalized for that. So that's why that exists. You know, if you've got CPA, chartered practicing accountants, right? Now, and they have to be like properly like certified, and you've got doctors who have to keep up the CPD points, they have to be certified. Why doesn't this exist for engineers? Because it has to do with safety. So that's a reason why that's important. That's a reason why we've like at Professionals Australia, we've got many different arms. We focus on pharmacy, we focus on science, we focus a lot on engineering too, and we developed a RPN program. So I was going to say, all right, so I've answered that question. So I'm just going to put up the link. What I'm gonna say too, another thing as well, if you guys want, all right, a resume template for your for the industry that you intended, you know, and also if you want some information of 5 top tips on how to improve your LinkedIn profile, to zhuzh it up, to make it very visible to people that's important to. And also lastly, if you want information sent to you regarding the STAR technique of interview processing, so, you know, situation, task, action, result, please type your first name, last name, email address, and I'll send it to you. But what I'm going to do is I'll put up the link for the offer. Right, here we go. Open recent, and so I'll put up the link for the offer, and that's $4 per month. And as mentioned, it guarantees you from start to finish. Start to finish the don't know what it's doing here. Start to finish the coaching when it comes to one-on-one coaching in your LinkedIn profile, your paper-based CV, your questions and answers of interviews, also contract reviews, indemnity insurance, and also professional development. All right. So there's the link there. And also if you become a member with us, you'll get more of a deep dive of what I've shown you about, the gender pay gap, and also just the industry pay gap in general as a whole. I know this is a bit of a weird question, but as a woman in male-dominated industry, I feel like when it comes to hiring, a part of involves how I look or if I'm pretty enough, is that you're not overthinking it. Benz, you're absolutely right. I have seen it happen. It's happened to me, right? They do this. It's disgusting, to be quite frank, right? They do that. And in the past, I could say now, so I would say about like 6, it even happens now in construction. It happens really badly now. A lot of companies they have work conferences. So what conferences looks like is one week of every year, they'll get all your work colleagues to they'll fly you to another country, and then in the hotel room you're stuck, even though you've got the beach everywhere or something like that. They'll start training you and stuff like that. And what you'll find is that even when they party in these in the evenings, you'll see pretty odd stuff. That's all I can say, right? They do this. So, you know, sometimes it's annoying when you've got a pretty girl and they get sleazed on. I can even tell you one example when my friend told me she was working, she was in a conference and her boss was just, oh my God, he just wouldn't leave her alone. And she pretty much went to her room, closed the door, hotel room, closed the door, and he knocked on it throughout the whole night. And then the next morning, it was bad. And he was so drunk. And the next morning, that she found a bouquet of flowers and a label saying sorry. Yeah. And I've even seen stuff as of recently where the last place I worked at, Bayer Pharmaceuticals. So it's, Benz, you're not imagining that, do you know? Yeah, it's, they do stuff like that. And I think it's, up to us to understand what's going on and also make a change. What's great about society now is that people are a bit more woke, and you've got feminists like Clementine Ford and Nadia Bakodi, and they talk about things like this, right? I've had an instance of when I walked in or see women who are hired, they seem to only hire who have a full face of makeup, perfect bodies. Not that there's nothing bad about looking. Yeah, no, yeah. Benz, you're not wrong. It does happen. That's a harsh reality. And the thing is, I suppose what's happened. So I'll give you an example. At Shire Pharmaceuticals, it was not just Shire, but the industry I was in. So it was really male dominated. And what happened was it takes a few women to sort of play the system. All right, pretty much like in their head, in their mind, they're like, in their heart, they're like, I'm going to change things. But what I'm going to do is work my butt off, really, really get my advocates, and then make my way up there. So like Peter Credlin as politician, like she's very clever, right? Now, I've seen women who do that. And over the span of 10 years I've been in the industry, these women now are top managing directors, business unit managers. And now they've pretty much gone, this is retribution. They don't say it. They pretty much change the whole landscape. And then when they go to conferences and see these drunk, sleazy managers, male managers doing whatever they're doing or whatever, they call them out on it. So it's changed, but it's mindful to understand that, we want to be part of that change as well. So if motivation for you is to be promoted, great, because that's great too. But also motivation for you, if you get promoted and get up to that top level, to dismantle this whole patriarch. All right. And sometimes you see in the industry. So my sister, before she was a project manager in a tech, she was in marketing, sales and marketing for a long time for Maya in head office. Now, she used to tell me stories. She'd be like, I hate it when there's certain women out there who perpetuate this big gender gap pay. And she's told me instances, and I'm like, that's ridiculous, right? So I think for me to talk to you about this situation, you got to, we're all part of this and we have to work collectively to change this, all right? And, one woman, you can even look her up, Kim Stratton. She's from the country. She was a nurse, and then she made her way all the way to Upshire Pharmaceutical supply chain, like big name, right? She pretty much dismantled it. She was like, I don't like what I see. I've seen quite a bit. I want to change it. And when I worked at Shire Pharmaceuticals, there were so many women who were like, say, in their 40s and 50s, they were in higher level positions, and because they deserved it, right? But if it was a male-dominated company with a men on top, they would have just gone, no, we're not going to give it to her. Right? So, Benz, you're not imagining these things. Your gut feeling is always correct. And in this instance, you're right on the money. All right? So, yeah. So I hope that answers your questions. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, well, it goes, okay, I thought I was overthinking it. I feel better now. Benz always feel good. I'm only telling you a snapshot of what I've seen. No, I've seen heaps. And I'll be like, like shaking my head. We're like, oh my God, yeah, this story. So I was just recently received an internship opportunity. Perfect. That's great. Congrats. But I feel a bit anxious because I'm not sure if I am good enough or might be, nah, man, you're good. That's why they gave you the job. Do you know what? Like, again, dig deep, right? Dig deep. Take a look at what you've achieved so far, not only in university career, but also your personal life where you worked at McDonald's. Take a look at the soft skills, right? If you've got a knack of trying to turn everything positive and influencing people, that is an achievement as itself. If you in the past have, if you worked at Macca's and your manager's like gone, oh my God, got an emergency, got to leave, can you take on my role? You've taken up that initiative and leadership role and taken over, that's something else that you should be weighing yourself up. You've got to list your achievements all the time. I cannot stress this out enough. I never did, right? I just got lucky because in my first interview, I know that I killed it, but not just that. It turns out my manager was friends with like my ex-uni buddy. Small world, right? So, and the thing I can only stress out is always write down stuff that you know that you're good at and what you've achieved, all those small wins. Let me tell you, at the end, they go into your CV. All right? Yeah, so don't feel anxious, Lynn. Please don't. Because let me tell you, if it was a guy, he'd be like, oh my God, like, I got this. Like, that's what a guy would do. Whereas a girl's like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. A guy, That's a different, that's a different. I was like, I just stand there and like, oh my God. My sister's the same. We talk about this quite often. We have arguments with a husband. He goes, that's your fault as women for not knowing what you're worth and asking for, you know what? Like, oh my God, like, yeah. And when you tell a guy, oh, there's a gender pay gap, they won't understand because they're a guy and they go, doesn't exist. I get told that about, like, my ex-boyfriend used to say that to me. I'm like, oh my God, don't even go there. All right. So yeah, so really believe in yourself. They've given you the role for a reason. You understand the challenges that they've faced in the past. Yes, oh my God, yes, they get so defensive. They do, man. They get so defensive. They're like, oh, and then like they go, I hate feminists. I hate Clementine Ford. They say stuff like that, and just you know, be graceful and say, do you know what? If you don't think that exists, why don't you think that exists? All right, so have you had instances? No, you haven't. Okay, well, guess what? I have, and also there's also surveys that prove these statistics. So give me a survey that proves otherwise, and I'll read it. Okay, that's what I say when they say stuff like that. I go, where's the evidence? Why do you say it doesn't exist? Can you give me some evidence? I can give you evidence. SBS did a program on this, and they also had a report that was published. Not just that, Professionals Australia has a report that's published in STEM. Now, you know, and I'm sure you could find a lot more others. But you know what? I'll find it for you and I'll send it to you. What do you say? They get very defensive. They so do. Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Yeah, so I think that's about it. But Lynn, I hope, wait. Then they say the evidence is biased. Do you know what? Just say, what do you mean it's biased? Tell me, I don't understand. You seem to know. Why is it biased? Tell me, what are the parameters? What parameters are biased? They just say stuff like that. It's biased. It's all these defensive like statements. But you go, okay, let me understand, because I actually do understand. Why is it biased? Right? Yeah. Just say, let me understand. Help me help you. Right? And then they'll get up. Yeah. Okay, Lynn Treat, I feel much better now. Thank you for sharing your interesting stories. It was a very eye-opening time, and I hope it was. I really hope it was, but that's the reality of it. And don't get caught up with all that stuff. Like, I know that there were a few people that I knew that got caught up with it, and then it's so annoying because then they started labeling her as someone it's not nice, right? The guys will say, oh yeah, that one. I'm like, you guys are so mean. You guys are just so vicious. But that's what happens in the workforce, and that's why it's really important to band with other women too that have the same course, and just like note down your observations. I always did. Whenever I saw something, I'd write it down, because say for instance, when that dude was trying to harass me, I'd say, well, do you know what? Last conference 3 years ago, this is what occurred. Conference the other time ago, this occurred. All the other things that occurred here. Now, you tell me, right? Like, I'm telling you as HR, this is what's happening. Here's a dossier here. Now, if you don't believe me, well, here it is, you know? So, yeah. But anywho, I think that's about it. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry for my disturbance with the dog. That was a plumber. I told the plumber early on, I go, dude, I can't let you in, right? He goes, but I'm only going next door. And it's like on the way. I go, I can't because I've got a guest lecture to take. So yeah, again, please, your first name, last name, email address, if you want. Again, your the five tips on how to give your LinkedIn profile a facelift. Secondly, how to, like, with the paper-based CV, you know, with each industry. All right. Also, questions and answers in interviews. Oh my God, so important. You know, we give you the STAR techniques of how to answer it and what to focus on. And yeah, that's pretty much it, but very important. I think out of all this, I hope the take-home message for you is, and I'll say the take-home message anyways, 1, you need to focus 80% of your time on LinkedIn and networking through LinkedIn. All right. 80%. 20% is on CV, advertised jobs, 80%. 2, now, questions and answers in interviews, you got to be on top of it. You got to be able to say, for instance, look in the mirror, or when someone asks you a random question, even though it's not exactly scripted the same, but it's roundabout the same, you got to be able to answer it and kill it, right? Within, say, about 5 minutes, right? And make it short, sharp, succinct, but very detailed, all right? And also, I think key last one that's really important for you women, know what you're worth. Document. Okay, because what you'll find is that the truth is, when you're pregnant, they try to push you out. This is in government and in non-for-profit, they don't do this, all right? But where I'm working at a trade union, they don't do this. But when you work in commercial and private, that's what you're susceptible for. So it's a balancing act. Like when you start off in private and commercial, you'll get paid little, but when you start achieving, they pay you a heap load. But then when you get pregnant, that's another story, okay? Yeah. So those are the take-home points that I'd like to leave you with.